The period of German history from 1919 to 1993, known as the Weimar Republic, represents the first attempt of establishing a liberal democracy in Germany. The constitution of the German Reich, usually known as the Weimar Constitution, was the constitution that governed the Weimar Republic in 1919 to 1933. The constitution technically remained in effect during the Third Reich from 1933 to 1945. Following the end of World War I, a German National Assembly gathered in the town of Weimar in the state of Thuringia in January or August 1919 to write a constitution for the Reich. The Weimar Republic had to deal with money problems. There was a weakness within the constitution which gave the president in the states and the army too much power. The Weimar Republic did not create a very strong government. The abdication of the Kaiser and the collapse of the monarchy began in late 1918. The new government, led by Chancellor Friedrich Ebert and the SPD, believed that Germany should try and become a democratic republic. This showed their own political values. Ebert and his cohort were nominally socialists. In reality, the SPD was dominated by moderates who favoured the progress and the transition rather than a radical change. Ebert was the president from 1919 until his death in 1925. After he was the president, he was replaced by Hindenburg, who was the president for 9 years until he also reached his death in 1934. Gustav Stresemann had been a nationalist during this period of time, but he realised that something needed to be done urgently to save Germany. He did many things, but one of the most important was what he did in 1923 when he organised a great coalition of moderate pro-democracy parties in Reichstag.
Economic distress and hyperinflation in the Weimar Republic. The Who's drop in confidence after World War I and the result of the Treaty of Versailles also caused a crisis in Weimar Germany itself, when prices started to rise to match inflation. Very quickly, things got out of control, and what is known as hyperinflation set in. Prices went up quicker than people could spend their money. In 1922, a loaf of bread cost 163 marks. By September 1923, its figure had reached 1,500,000 marks, and at the peak of hyperinflation, November 1923, a loaf of bread cost 200 billion marks. The impact of hyperinflation was huge. People were paid by the hour and rushed to pass money to loved ones, so that it could be spent before its value meant it was worthless. People had to shop with wheelbarrows full of money. Bartering became common, exchanging something for something else, but not accepting money for it. Pensioners on fixed incomes suffered as pensions became worthless. Restaurants did not print menus, as by the time food arrived, prices went up. The poor became even poorer by the winter of 1923, meant that many lived in freezing conditions, burning furniture to get some heat. The very rich suffered least because they had sufficient contacts to get food, etc. Most of the rich were landowners and could produce food on their own estates. The group that suffered a great deal was the middle class. Their hard-earned savings disappeared overnight. They did not have the wealth or land to fall back on as the rich had. It is not surprising that many of those middle class who suffered in 1923 were to turn to Hitler and the Nazi Party.
After World War I, Kaiser Wilhelm fled Germany, leading to political unrest. The former socialist president, Friedrich Ebert, had also fled, and on the 13th of March 1920, the Free Corps, led by Wolfgang Kapp, overtook Berlin in the Kapp Push. Kapp was an extreme nationalist who hated the government for signing the Treaty of Versailles. He had the Berlin police and Free Corps on his side, but not the workers, and this ultimately was his failure. They organised a general strike supporting Ebert and the government, paralysing the city of Berlin within a day. There was no water, gas or coal, and no trains or buses were running. Organised a general strike supporting Ebert and the government, paralysing the city of Berlin within a day. There was no water, gas or coal, and no trains or buses were running, and officials in the government refused to provide Kapp with money. Kapp gave in and fled to Sweden after just 100 hours, and Ebert and his government returned to Berlin as if nothing had happened. However, the workers stayed on strike, and in the Ruhr Valley, the communists formed a 50,000-strong Red Army. Government troops managed to defeat them, but fighting broke out in other areas. The Free Corps were sent in to put them down, shooting over 2,000 workers. This rising scared people, and the authorities became tough with communists, using violence to stop them. Between 1919 and 1922, there were 356 political murders in Germany, including that of Walter Rathenow, the foreign minister.
The invasion of the Ruhr in 1923 by French and Belgian soldiers was a major turning point during the interwar years. French and Belgium occupied the Ruhr because Germany set out in the Treaty of Versailles needed to pay their war reparations. After the war, Europe's economy was in turmoil, and France needed the money that Germany owed them to pay back America and start rebuilding after the disasters of the war. Germany fell behind on their payments, and France decided to take matters into their own hands. The French believed that they had every right to occupy the Ruhr on January 11, 1923, to extract the reparations themselves.